is one of the great songs ever written. One of the great. I started. I first heard the song done by Donny Hathaway, and I fell in love with his rendition. Absolutely adored it. And as a matter of fact, that song and his rendition helped to make him famous. And then, of course, I saw that the writer of the song, where I discovered it wasn't Donnie that wrote the song, it was Leon, a guy by the name of Leon Russell who wrote the song. I had an uncle, Uncle Johnny. He was my mother's brother. And Uncle Johnny used to have a vast collection of jazz, like Duke Ellington, Lionel Hampton records, Duke Ellington records, and I think even some B.B. King. But the one music that I listened to that I would be 4 and 5 years old now. 4 and 5, and I would actually get up to the speaker, put my ear, and I would listen to Duke Ellington, Black and Tan Fantasy, and that's what kind of fed me. It fed my imagination. And then on top of that, my mother was letting me take piano lessons, and that also added to it as well. So I kind of came out of that. And then by the time I got to be, I think I was 12 or 13, I heard an album by Miles Davis, and it was Sketches of Spain. And I was totally engulfed and fascinated by listening to that. And I remember he was interpreting his rendition of Concerto Ehrenweth. That was the orchestration that he was duplicating, okay? But he did it his way. And I just got it. And then I was listening to Ella Fitzgerald on the radio at 12. Billie Holiday. Not so much Billie, because I was kind of disappointed, because I had heard all this talk about Billie Holiday. And I knew a man by the name of Arthur Herzog Jr., who actually wrote the song, God Bless the Child. He is the writer. And of course, Billie Holiday had the reputation and was known for recording it as well. And I kind of just got into it because, and then I started entering talent contests in Detroit. And then by the time when I was 13, I entered a talent contest that was on television. And it was called the Ed McKenzie Dance Hour. And it came on every Saturday afternoon at 2:00. And he was like our local rendition of Dick Clark's American Bandstand. And of course, Ed McKenzie was like, he would have all these teenagers, dancing on the show. And every week he would feature a recording artist who was headlining at one of the local clubs in Detroit, like the Flame Show Bar, or it could be the Elmwood Casino, that was located right across the river from Detroit in Windsor. And, like the Four Freshmen, Della Reese, Don Cherry, different people like that, different artists who would come through, Dizzy Gillespie, and they would be featured on this afternoon program. So they had a talent contest every week, and it was only 4 acts. And so I auditioned to be on it, and I got the call back to participate in the contest. Well, I won. The first time I won, and it was, I was 13, and Sammy Davis Jr. was the big star on the show that afternoon. And afterwards, we took a picture together. And I have it in my book. You know, it's like a black and white 8x10 shot with me and Sammy. And you can see in the background says WXYZ TV. And then about almost a year later, they called me back. I won the contest, so I was holding up my trophy. So they called me back like a few months later, like maybe 8 or 9 months later, to participate again, to do it again, and I won again. So that was like kind of gave me the inspiration to say, maybe this is what God's way of telling me now what I need to pursue in life. So that's that's how I began. And then, of course, I can't leave this out. Also, when I was 14, and for 3 years, I sang on the radio in a chorus called Make Way for Youth. And it was station WJR, and it was located in the Fisher Building in Detroit, up on the penthouse floor. And Don Large had a choral group, and I was one of the members of the choral group, and he had me do solos all the time. It was me and Ursula Walker. Ursula Walker is a girl that used to sing on TV back then when I was a kid. When I was 11 and 12, she was already singing on TV. And I would say, I want to be like Ursula Walker. I want to be like Ursula Walker. And she was the one that I always thought would like go places, like blow up, you know. But she never left Detroit. So you have to leave Detroit. You can't just stay in one town. You got to leave. Honey, you better go. There's a boat that's leaving soon for New York. Come with me. That's where you belong, sister. And that's true. That's true. You got to get out. You got to go to New York. I'm not saying that that's what you got to do now, but back then it was true. Because then that's where you start doing things, you get to see the world. Of course, it's baptismal by fire. But the irony is that I wound up having to come back to Detroit to sign a record deal with 3 young guys from Detroit that I had known before in the past because they came out of Motown, and it was Eddie and Brian Holland and Lamont Dozier, Holland, Dozier, and Holland, HDH. And they were like the golden boys from Motown. They're the ones that did all the classic hits for the Four Tops, all the basic classic hits for the Supremes that became the #1 singing girl group in the world. And that's how they signed me and the reason why Eddie told me himself, he says, Freda, we wanted to sign you because we knew that Barry wanted you really bad. And he just, he messed up, he just, and it was almost like a revenge thing. They wanted to get a hit on me to kind of thumb their nose at Barry saying, look, we got Freda and look what you could have done, that kind of thing. So it all worked in my behalf. Well, I met Quincy when I was living in New York. And when I first met him, I was 18 and he was 28. And I was at a restaurant. I was with my roommate, Carol. And we used to say, because back then there wasn't that much on television, and there was only 3 channels. And so she was a nurse, and she's still around, by the way. We're still friends. She still lives in New York, and we used to go out a lot, because back then, were young single girls back in New York. So we would go out a lot, and we would go to the local bars or go to a club and, just hang out and have a good time. And so one night we decided to go to this restaurant down in the 80s, owned by a guy by the name of Danny Sims. And it's in my book, Sapphires, that was the name of it, Sapphires. they would, it was that restaurant would stay open later than most restaurants because he catered to like the kind of like the after hour crowd as well. So Carol and I said, let's go down to Sapphire's and have dinner, you know. So we went down there and it was kind of late. And Danny came over to me and he said, and he knew that I was a singer, you know, that I was a singer and I was a spot, you know, trying to get ahead and all that kind of stuff. And he said, see that guy over there? His name is Quincy Jones. He's got a big band and he's performing at Basin Street East. He says, I think it's a good idea for you to meet him. I got up and I went and he walked me over there and he introduced me to Quincy. Quincy was there with another musician who was his buddy, a saxophone player named Jerome Robbins. They were eating together and Quincy said, oh, why don't you sit down, you know, and we started talking. And then when they finished their meal, he came over to my table and said, would you ladies like to join us? We're going to another spot to see this trio play, you know, a jazz trio. And we went to this other place and we, you know, listened to the jazz trio. And he said, well, tomorrow night, why don't you come to see my big band, hear my big band at Basin Street East? You can be my guest. And so the next night I went to see him and then one thing led to another and we had a little affair. And I fell in love. He called me up about a few months after that, or no, this was like almost a year later. In the interim, I had landed a deal with Impulse. I did an album on Impulse called After the Lights Go Down Low and Much More. And he called me. He said, I see you got that deal on Impulse. You got an album out and sounds pretty good. He said, I'm playing the Apollo in a few months, and I would want to know if you'd like to be on the bill. And you could sing, you know, like 4 or 5 songs. And we've got Billy Eckstine headlining, and we've got Red Fox, the comedian, on the show. And I'd like to hire you as, you know, the girl singer. And so that's how that all started. Unfortunately, I fell in love with him, and at the time he was married. So that doesn't work out very well. Frank Sinatra. He would come down to the lounge, and with some of his pals, his friends, and I guess because I just happened to be the singer performing, and then after I finished my set, he invited me to come over, and he invited me to come up to his suite, like the next day, kind of like he said, just come up to the suite and hang out with us. Well, I did, and I was thinking, I wonder, because I'd heard the stories about Sinatra and women, you know, and somebody actually told me once, they said, if Sinatra ever hits on you, don't ever turn him down. So I'm like, okay, if that ever happens. So I was like, kind of like apprehensive, but I went and I just hung out, you know, and he just had me there. I was just like one of his, you know, like they say, they have different people that just want to kind of like hang out with these big superstar artists. And they have people that they like to have people around sometimes. And he never went out of the way. He never was disrespectful to me or anything like that. And I was kind of like, I bet you he's gonna make a move. I bet he's gonna try to do something, and he never did. And then once, when I was up there hanging around, you know, just sitting there keeping company, he said to me, Freda, I like you. You're a great singer. He said, you're a good singer and you're a lady. And he never hit on me. And I always wondered, I wonder why he never hit on me. But I was glad, I wasn't like thinking that I wanted that to happen. I didn't really want that to happen, but I felt it was better to have it like it turned out to be. Because in the long run, he just had respect for me because he respected that I was a good singer. The BBC had actually called me to talk to me about Band of Gold being #1 hit in the UK. And the guy said, "Do you think Band of Gold would have been even a bigger hit if Diana Ross had recorded it?" I said, "No, I don't." I said, "All I can say about that is it just wasn't meant for her. It was meant for me, and I don't know. I mean, it probably, maybe it would have become a hit as well. But I don't think there should be any comparison, you know. It's apples and oranges. They both taste good. They're both fruits, just different textures and colors and taste." And so I went to this audition and I won the audition to be a background singer with Pearl Bailey Review. And so there were certain rules that I had to adhere to. First of all, she said, when you work for me, whatever cologne you wear or perfume, you have to wear what I wear. In other words, if I wanted to wear Chanel No. 5, if I wanted to wear any other cologne or perfume, I had to wear Réplique, it's by Jean Revien. And then the second rule was you had to wear, like, I'm light complected. I'm an African-American person, Negro. I'm light complected. And then one of the background singers was Caucasian, white girl. And then another background singer was a older woman, but she was dark skinned, brown. Pearl Bailey was like in between, kind of like, she was brown. She wasn't dark, but she was brown. And she said, I don't want all these different complexions. So I forgot her name, the white girl had to wear dark makeup. And I had to wear darker makeup as well because I'm light. And I remember that makeup used to stain, because it was dark and it would get on everything, and that's how she was, which to me, that was a sign of insecurity. She said, I want everybody to blend. And I felt so sorry for the white girl. I forgot her name, but and she was so nice. I felt so sorry for her. And then of course I went out and bought a bottle of Réplique. So there'd be no conflict of aromas backstage or on stage. I thought that I have not run into that situation in my life since Pearl Bailey. And anybody that's ever worked with her always agreed that she was a bitch. As simple as that, she was a bitch. I'm here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, to perform and sign and autograph my books along with Mark Beagle, who also is the co-writer of the book as well. It's my memoir, but I'm here to enjoy Tulsa, interact with the population. I'm here at the church studio as well, which is a wonderful building, fabulous facility, and I'm enjoying it so very much.